Hello! Viewers of a certain age will recall a commercial for Pantene featuring a stunning Kelly LeBrock who looked into the camera, tossed her hair, and cooed, "Don't hate me because I'm beautiful." I was recently reminded of that tagline when I came across an academic trying to explain why confidence in higher education these days is at record low numbers. One poll shows it has fallen to 36% this year, from 57% in 2015. This college president explained the low numbers this way: "I believe there is a concerted effort to discredit experts and scholars because they are dedicated to seeking and articulating the truth." Let me repeat that. He said, "I believe there is a concerted effort to discredit experts and scholars because they are dedicated to seeking and articulating the truth." Don't hate me because I'm smarter than you. Yeah, that doesn't ring true to me. The current disdain for much of academia isn't because we're pursuing the truth and sharing what we discover. It's not that at all. We've been doing that for centuries. It's actually quite the opposite. Institutions of higher learning are being roundly criticized not for pursuing truth, but for establishing new orthodoxies and demanding that everyone accept them. They're doing the opposite of seeking knowledge. They are claiming to possess it. And once they've told you what it is, there will be no more discussion. And no, the distrust is not simply coming from evil MAGA folks. I hear more and more of it from colleagues who despise Trump as much as I do. John McWhorter, one of my favorite academics, a guy on the left who writes for the New York Times, he compares this current moment in higher ed to religious fundamentalism. Today's disdain for higher ed is actually rooted in its rejection of what makes the pursuit of knowledge actually work: dialogue, debate, and institutionalized disconfirmation. When you silence disagreement, when you cancel speakers because you don't like their politics, when you curtail free speech in favor of an alleged right not to be offended, you inhibit the pursuit of knowledge. This is what the critics are disgusted with. It's also important to note that scholars don't deal in the currency of facts. They are not the arbiters or sentinels to tell everyone what the real truth is. They pursue truth, they honor truth, they don't possess the truth. In the hard sciences, chemists don't test a hypothesis, discover data that supports that hypothesis, and then declare they have proven something. They don't say their hypothesis is now fact. That's not how it works. Science works so well because there are always other scientists out there ready to critique your methodology, examine your analysis, and see if your findings can be duplicated. Even if they like what they see, you still don't get to facts. That's not how science works. It's always the case that there could have been an error in the process. Everything is subject to critique. Science, without a framework of institutionalized disconfirmation, will not work. Silencing dissidents has never been a good model in the history of science. If those in the hard sciences must exercise such humility, how much more so those of us who work in the social sciences or humanities? We work in disciplines far less controlled and quantifiable, so our humility should reflect that. And let's be clear, the objections to intellectual bullying are not directed at chemistry and physics. The bullying is often coming out of academic disciplines far less objective. What's more, it's where these topics intersect with politics that things get really difficult. This is where the most rigor and humility are necessary. And yet claims of the truth of political positions related to human psychology, economics, law, or ethics are very often declared in a way no honest scientist would allow in his or her discipline. This is exactly what happened with gender issues in recent years. People in the social sciences and humanities declared a new truth about gender and sex, and insisted that everyone else get on board. These views were not coming out of the scientific community, but administrators, faculty, staff, students, none of them were permitted to disagree. This was a power play, not a result of academic deliberation. And if you didn't accept certain new facts, you could lose your job. If you were a student who challenged them, the other students very well might destroy you on social media. This was not the pursuit of truth. It was ideological bullying. And ideological bullying is the reason so many people distrust academic institutions. This is especially bad when we find scholars in particular academic disciplines making such absolute claims about what is the truth in areas outside of their expertise. Poets pontificating on epistemology, philosophers laying down dogma on environmental issues, musicians chastising the Supreme Court, theologians as prophets of economic justice. Now let me be clear. I'm not opposed to academics weighing in on any issue they would like to. Obviously, I do this all the time. However, I put my argument out there for public consideration. I welcome feedback and debate. I want people to judge my arguments based on their merits, not what letters follow my name. And I do the same with others. I've known brilliant people who never went to college, and I have heard plenty of stupid ideas endorsed by people with PhDs. I've had a few of them myself. But I know too much to believe it's a good idea to let academic experts serve as sentinels and broadcasters of the truth. If someone is a specialist in a field, if someone has studied, say, Russian history for decades, I'll listen to them very carefully and respectfully if we're discussing the Russia-Ukraine war. They have expertise which give them great insight and knowledge of the situation. But they don't get to declare their view the truth because of that expertise. That academics don't possess the truth should be obvious on the basis of one simple observation. Scholars don't agree with each other. Do all economists agree on the minimum wage? Do all political scientists vote the same way? Are all sociologists Marxists? Well, anyway, our religious studies department has faculty with doctorates from Oxford, Brown, Duke, and Vanderbilt. That's not bad. We're all fairly accomplished scholars, and we disagree on things related to our discipline all the time. Which one of us has the truth? Who gets to be the sentinel? We can try to persuade each other with logic and evidence. What doesn't work is pursuing the truth by silencing or ignoring one another. Behind all of this, we have to acknowledge what Jonathan Haidt has so often pointed out. All of us are inclined toward motivated reasoning, and perhaps academics more than others. We're not purely objective observers and thinkers, no matter how well educated we are. We are all subject to biases. We want certain things to be true. We personally benefit when certain claims are supported. We don't want to be wrong. Not surprisingly, we often compromise the integrity of our intellect to reach the conclusion we wanted to reach at the beginning. It may be conscious or subconscious, but it's there. And many of you will know that Martin Luther referred to this as the whorishness of reason. We're not the objective truth seekers we think we are. So, what do we do about this? Public discourse keeps us honest, if we engage with one another. You can't put out a crappy argument if you know someone will be able to publicly disagree. Whenever I give a public address on a controversial topic, where the audience will have the opportunity to challenge me, you can be sure I do very careful work, weigh my words vigilantly, and have all sorts of documentation to support my claims. Iron sharpens iron. But what happens if you're in an echo chamber, and you know you won't face any challenges? Your arguments will be weak, and you may very well move toward absurd conclusions when there is no one there to hold you accountable. No one will say, you really should read so-and-so who argues something different. But this is what we find far too often in higher ed. And these are the people who think that others, outside the institution, should just accept academics' claims as fact. After all, if everyone agrees with you, when you've never heard a serious rebuttal to your positions, it's not surprising you're certain that you're right. Again, colleges and universities should be about the pursuit of truth, not the possession of it. Imagine paying tens of thousands of dollars for your kid to go to university, where he or she is simply told the right position on all sorts of complicated social and political issues. I'd want my money back, and for my kid to transfer to a school where professors expose students to great and conflicting ideas, and challenge them to work through their relative strengths and weaknesses. A professor telling his or her students the truth about all subjects of intellectual inquiry is a very poor professor indeed. And we all know there is far too much of this in higher ed these days. And this returns us to why the deplorable hoi polloi don't trust colleges and universities these days. Academia does not have a culture of intellectual diversity. It does not encourage difference of opinion, debate, and genuine dialogue. Those with power too often silence those who have views contrary to the established orthodoxy, sometimes by actively silencing them, but most often simply by denying them a place at the table. If college presidents want to see the quality, prestige, reputation, and integrity of their institutions regain lost ground, it's not really that hard. It obviously begins with free speech. Those who silence dissidents do not deserve our respect. But the next step is no less necessary. We need ideological diversity. We need smart people on campus who represent different viewpoints. Free speech is meaningless if the microphone is only available to those with the same perspective. This is the fundamental failing of higher ed, and why people rightfully view it with suspicion, and sometimes with deserved disdain. Institutions that bring in bright, informed, articulate representatives with differing opinions and allow them to engage one another respectfully but critically, these are the institutions that will earn the trust of society. These are the institutions that students will want to attend and their parents to pay for. Not because they contain the truth, but because they model how to pursue it. The regular people outside of academia are right. You can't claim to be a bastion of knowledge by establishing an orthodoxy and silencing dissent. No, these folks aren't jealous of you and how smart you are. Many of them just have a nose for fertilizer. How is my institution doing? Well, we don't always get things right. But the fact that I'm putting out this video without any fear of reprisal probably says something. Thank you.